Good evening and welcome to the Friday Forecast. I am your host, Chris Brack. Yes, they've let me back for one more week, so God knows how this is going to go. And as always, I'm joined by LFC Daytripper regular now, Avi, and we've got Matt from Tottenham Blog, and replacing Joe because he apparently got all the goal predictions right last week. We've got Oscar in instead. So, gents, how are we all? We all good?
I'm doing great, mate. I'm doing great.
Good. Right, so let's get straight into it. We don't normally do Monday night games, but looking at this week, the Monday night fixture is looking quite tasty. So we're going to go through the first game. So we're going to start with Chelsea, Liverpool's the latest team to beat Liverpool, which isn't very difficult at the moment, versus Everton, who are in real good form at the moment, just outside the top four. So let's see what we think. So Oscar, what's your thoughts? Chelsea Leeds, Chelsea Everton, even sorry.
I mean, you look at it. I think the thing with Chelsea is not particularly great to watch. I don't think they're fantastic to watch, but I just think they're solid now. I just think they've got that ability to keep clean sheets. They've won a lot of games by one goal, just 1-0. Obviously, got a lot of professional wins as well last night. Again, good. A good win. I don't think they would have got under Lampard. I don't think they'd have had that discipline to see a game like that out. But I quite fancy Chelsea here. I think Everton are decent, but I still think they're inconsistent. I still think some weeks it can be absolutely brilliant, other weeks it can be terrible. I mean, I've seen from when we've played them, Leeds, Goodison Park, they look like a team that could be in relegation trouble. But then when they play us at Ellen Road, they look a completely different side. So I'd still back Chelsea, to be honest. I'd probably go 1-0 Chelsea. I don't think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be one of those games where you look at it on paper, all the attacking talent, James Rodriguez, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin versus Werner, Mount, Hudson-Odoi. You'd think that'd be the makings of a really good game, but I've just got that feeling that it won't quite play out that way. I think both teams a little bit more cautious now, so I'm going to go 1-0 Chelsea.
Okay. Avi, Red Steve seems to think you're here all the time. You're burning your face into his screen.
That's what I loved that previously. Yeah.
It's going on, mate. Tommy Tuchel, we know you love him. Christ knows why, but you do.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was unfortunately, I wasn't supporting him yesterday, but everyone's going to say it was a Tuchel masterclass. It really wasn't. It's just what every other team's doing it before them, isn't it? Like the Brightons, the Burnleys coming away and just getting that goal. But I thought they did play well yesterday. I thought they were the better team, to be fair to them. We didn't really carve out any clear-cut chances. This game is an intriguing one because it's Ancelotti going back to the Stamford Bridge as well as manager with Everton, and he's made them solid. Fair play to the blue side of Merseyside. He has got them playing well, and they grind out a good result yesterday at West Brom. A debatable late goal for West Brom, but I can see this happen. I think it's a draw. I really do. I think Everton will set out their stall, and then I think it'll be a lot of cat and mouse going on, a bit like Tom and Jerry, Chris. So
a bit like you, mate.
I can see a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 myself.
1-1, okay. Oh, you're being very pessimistic, you two. Come on, Matt. Oh, God. Matt, cheer me up. You've got to be positive and tell me it's going to be a great game, aren't you?
It's going to be a great game, Chris. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Okay, don't lie to me. Just, come on.
But every game that you can sit here and say you think it's going to be a good game in the Premier League this season, it's been terrible. And look, it's just it's the way it's going. I mean, 18 goals in the weekend last week. Obviously, don't tell Joe that, but it's just the way the league is going. It started when VAR came in with or getting penalties all over the place. So it's going to be so many more goals. Everything's going to be more exciting. All it is now is your team scores. You're like, oh, what are they going to rule it out for this time? Look, I know that's obviously more of a conversation for later on in the show, but look, Chelsea against Everton at Stamford Bridge, it's only really ever gone one way. It's actually, interestingly, Chelsea's winning run or unbeaten run at home to Everton is their second longest ever in the Premier League, where their only one that's longer is against Spurs. And Everton's run without winning at Stamford Bridge, the only one that's longer than that is how long they went without winning at Ellen Road. So that's what's really relevant a bit to the panel here. But Everton just don't have luck when they go to Stamford Bridge. And I've been saying it for a few weeks now that that new manager bounce of Tuchel coming into Chelsea has to end eventually. But the longer it goes on, the more it's what that team is now rather than a new manager bounce, if that makes sense. He's kept everything clean sheets in every game he's played at Stamford Bridge so far. The first one of those was a boring 0-0 draw with Wolves, but they've managed to get going at the other end of the pitch. And I think Chelsea fans will be the first ones to tell you that they're still not as good as they can be in front of goal with a few players not hitting form. Timo Werner hasn't been the signing they wanted. You could say the same thing about Kai Havertz and Hakim Ziyech. But defensively, they're really, really solid. And with Calvert-Lewin not in the score sheet that much lately, Richarlison has scored in his last 4 games, so maybe there could be a bit of a threat there for Chelsea with Everton catching them on the break. But Chelsea just seem to tick every single box at the moment in terms of what you want to get points on the board. And it hurts me to say it as a Spurs fan. I hate them as much as I hate the Arsenals, West Hams and all that, but they're a very, very good side who seem to have everything ticking right now, with Mason Mount starting to hit form as well. He's more goals under Tuchel this season than he had under Frank Lampard, which is a crazy sack given how important he was to that Lampard side. But I do think we may see a few more goals in this one than perhaps Abby's expecting there. I think I'm going to go with a 3-1 win for Chelsea. 3-1,
okay. Barry Carr's got a 4-3. So I'll be Barry. If it's 4-3, mate, I'll be made up. That's a great Monday night's game. Boxers LFC. Boxers has got a draw. I think it'd be. I've got a tight game. I think the key for Everton is if Alan plays. I think this is the sort of games he was bought for. I think him coming back is going to make it more difficult because they need someone to cut supply out to Mount. As we found to our downfall, we didn't, and surprisingly, he gets the goal from there. I've got Chelsea squeaking out. I just think their home form, and I just think their 4-1-2. They've just found a way of grinding results out, a bit Mourinho-esque, and I just think with that pace on the attack against Everton's defence, I do think that pace is going to cause a issue. So I've gone for a 2-1 Chelsea for that one.
Just a quick one on that. I know Matt alluded to it. Timo Werner, I thought he did well yesterday. Fair play to the fella. When he plays well, he deserves a bit of credit because he's had a lot of stick this season. I know it was a big fee as well coming from Leipzig, but I thought yesterday he led the line really well. He was drifting from the left and in the middle. Should have got it was unlucky with the goal because I thought he should have stood. But I thought he's getting sharper and sharper. And I think under Tuchel, he will get a big tune out of him. And I think we'll see the best of him probably next season.
Yeah, I mean, he was constantly coming in from the left, which is what he did for Leipzig, rather than making him stay solely, but he was getting a bit more freedom. I think that formation helps him playing as a 2. Even if it is like a winger behind him, I think that helps him out, takes a bit of the pressure off him. Yeah, no, as much as I must have hoped he was ever stinking. He was brilliant for them. Probably just behind Mount, I would say. Cool. So moving on, next game we're going to look at is going to be the Midlands derby. Aston Villa, who are still in fairly decent form, although I must admit, shock result losing to 10-man Sheffield United against Wolves, who just don't look like they can buy a win at the moment. Avi, I come to you. How are you feeling about this? Do you feel it's going to be straightforward Villa win, which seems to be what the early pundits are saying?
Yeah, Wolves have been a bit of a disappointment this season. You just think there's some games where they look really good. They look like a good footballing team, and then you see them, and then I think they got a draw against Newcastle last, wasn't it? And you just think like they should be doing a lot better than the table suggests. But Villa, they show again good. Some games where you think that they can actually push on for the top 6, and then they will slip away and get a bad result. I can see it's really hard to actually predict a win in this one. Again, I see another draw. I see another one. I see another 1-1. I really do. I think Villa. I think Grealish is back, isn't he, for this game?
Just checking. Apparently, he's due back on the 12th.
So, okay, so my bad.
So that's next weekend. So
still one out. So yeah, I can see a draw. There was talk of Nuno even maybe departing this summer. Don't know how that will work with all the George Mendes stuff, but yeah, I can see a draw 1-1.
1-1. Okay. Oscar, what are we thinking?
I'm backing Villa, to be honest, in this game. I think Villa defensively, massive improvement on last season. I think obviously when they played us at the weekend, very impressed by how they restricted us to nothing, and we're one of the more creative teams in the league. I think we're top 6 with creativity, and Villa just gave us nothing on the day. And I think against Wolves, without Jimenez on the pitch, they've only really got Neto as really the only outlet for me, the only player who will look at and think on his day he could cause serious problems. And I just think Villa will find it easier to deal with him. Obviously, they can man mark Neto almost out of the game, and I just don't think without Jimenez there's anyone else who can step up into them shoes. Certainly not by the looks of things so far. And I think even defensively, Wolves are suspects at this moment in time. I think even Connor Cody, who was absolutely a colossus the first 2 seasons in the Premier League, I think even his levels have dropped a little bit. And I just think every single player's levels have dropped a bit at Wolves. Ruben Neves, he's been linked with everyone in the top 6. He's almost now kind of fading into almost a mid-table player. I know his technical quality is far higher than that, but he's almost fading into just like, maybe he's not going to get that move from Wolves. And I think a lot of players like that now from Wolves, who we all kind of thought, they could easily do a job for the top 6 teams. It's almost not kind of worked out that way. And I think Wolves, to be fair, I can't even see him making the top 10 at this moment in time. I just don't think I just think there's not really one area of that team we look at and think there's a lot of quality, really, in terms of where they look particularly strong. I just don't really see it. But in terms of Villa, even without Grealish on the pitch, I still think they've got enough goals in that team. Watkins can step up. Trezeguet, El Ghazi, who was absolutely superb last weekend. Absolutely superb player, to be fair. There's a lot of goals in that Villa team, and I think they changed system against us to a 4-3-3. They went a bit more physicality in the middle of the park. John McGinn was a colossus, and I can see this being another game where John McGinn dominates it really in the middle of the park, where he really does that job on Neves. I really could see that, and but I'm going to back Villa here 2-0. I'm going to go Villa.
Okay. Matt, come to you. Tom Bolland saying he's expecting Wolves to win. Villa need Barkley to step up with Grealish, but he doesn't believe he's stepped up yet. Do you agree with that? I mean, I'm not a massive Barkley fan, but I think that's asking anyone to step up to be covering Grealish. I think is a difficult ask for anyone. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree with that. Barkley coming in from Chelsea, and knowing people were expecting a lot better of him, and he has had some fantastic performances there, but he hasn't been to the level that perhaps you would want from a player coming out of a top 4, top 6 side like Chelsea. He, as always, has had his injury concerns, but stepping into the boots of Jack Grealish, there aren't many players in the Premier League who could do that, especially in that Aston Villa side. And Villa fans will be very keen to make the argument that Grealish, they're not a one-man team. They do have some very, very good players in there, like Oscar mentioned there with Watkins, Trezeguet, El Ghazi in that middle of the park, the John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, and they have a solid defence there as well with Ezri Konsa and Tyrone Mings on his day, a very good defender. But I think what you do need to take into consideration is those players are immediately a lot better when Jack Grealish is in that team. And Villa fans may be reluctant to admit that, but when your best player's gone, the players around him, they do suffer, and there's no one to kind of fill in that space for Jack Grealish. He'll pick that ball up deep, and he'll win a free kick, or he'll drive forward, he'll take on 1 or 2 men and kind of relieve the pressure on that defence. And of course his attacking his ability in the attacking third as well is second to none in that Aston Villa side. But having said that, Wolves just hasn't clicked for them this season, and it's been a really strange season because there's been a lot of teams who have been like that. You can look at Sheffield United as well, a lot worse than last season. You could of course bring Liverpool into that conversation as well, likes of Arsenal, Spurs as well, really, really struggling to get going. So it has been a really strange season in that regard, but it doesn't take away from the fact that Wolves should be doing better. They have the personnel in that side to really go and push for Europe as they did last season. Very unlucky to miss out on it. Of course, Raúl Jiménez has been a massive miss for them this season, but he's not the only player that has been a step down from last year. Adama Traoré, I don't think he has a goal contribution in the league yet this season, when he was the main focal point of their attack, especially after the restart towards the end of last year. I think losing Matt Doherty has been a big one for them. I think Nelson Semedo is probably a better footballer than Matt Doherty, but I think Doherty just really suited that system so well, and maybe you're seeing that with his decline in form at Spurs as well. But the lack of consistency in the shape as well, they've reverted to 4 at the back quite a bit this season. That doesn't suit Connor Cody. He's better kind of as that libero type player in the middle of that back 3. But then you're looking at the players either side of him. It's it could be Leander Dendoncker, it could be Roman Saiz, who are very good players, but they're not centre backs. They're centre midfields who have essentially been converted into defenders to try and make that system work. But when they're not getting on the ball, they're not able to spray the passes either way. All of a sudden, it's a very different story. And you could say the same about Ruben Neves and João Moutinho in the middle of the park. They're a lot better in possession than they are out of possession. I think that for me is why Wolves are struggling to get a hold of games this season. And the battle for this one could be in the middle of the park. And I would argue that Villa do have that extra strength and that the extra form really in the middle of there. And I'd say not the most exciting of games. I think it could be a very cagey tactical affair, but I'm going to go with a 1-0 win for Aston Villa.
Okay. Did you take a breath then? My God.
I never do. Oh.
Cool. Stephen Duffy has put on an interesting one. I wanted Mings in January for Liverpool, if only. Question, if hypothetically you could, Mings or would you have Konsa?
Oh, Konsa, all day, every day. And that might be because I'm biased against Tyrone Mings. A lot of history between Leeds and Tyrone Mings, to be fair. But now, Konsa, I mean, in terms of it's hard to say because Van Dijk is so far ahead of any other centre-back in this league for me. He went fully fit. I mean, only really Diaz, possibly Stones, if he puts another year's worth of form together like he has done. can probably get into that conversation. But Konsa, in terms of style, is probably stylistically the most player that reminds me the most of Van Dijk. He never seems to have to break stride. He's always in the right position, aerially dominant, composed on the ball. He would tick a lot of boxes. He really would. And you think his age is good as well. I remember seeing him at Brentford, and I'm a massive Konsa fan. He's got to be in that England's team, never mind squad, for the Euros for me.
Avi, what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Konsa, I think Mings is terrible, to be fair. He's just best of a bad bunch. I think that's where England we'll just go off topic a little bit. I think that's where England lack at the moment, that central defence pairing, isn't it? Because Gomez is out, Maguire doesn't really, I don't rate him highly. And then you got Mings, and then you got Stones, who's showing a bit of form, fair play to him. And then you've got, Ezri Konsa, he should be up there on current form. He should be, in the top two. He should be starting for that England team.
You could argue for Keane from Everton also deserves a shout. He's probably one of the more improved centre backs this year. But the only one above him that is probably John Stones. In fairness, I like Mings as an organizer. I think he is an organizer, but I just feel there's a higher ceiling with Konsa. He just looks like a player who is not far away, ready for maybe a move to a Champions League club. I won't say a bigger club because that's probably not the right phrase, but to a team that's playing regular. I mean, if Villa get themselves into Europe this year, that'd be a big thing. So it'd be interesting how he does. Matt, what's your thoughts on Mings or Konsa?
I prefer Konsa. Look, straight out, I do think he's a better defender. He's kind of more reliable, I'd say. Mings is one who really does kind of split opinion, and for me, the fact that he hasn't really made it at any team he's been at, he's never been the kind of main man in that defence, I suppose, is probably goes to show just that he's not that very reliable player. And I think Ezri Konsa can be that one for Villa, and of course for the national team as well. He's good in the air. He's good 1-on-1 defending. He's good in possession as well. For me, he does have the edge over Mings.
And I know it's a silly thing to say. Just drop in there. It's a silly thing to say, but Konsa, he believes in himself as well. He believes that he belongs, at a top team as well, and that's the confidence that you need, especially for a centre back. And at that age as well, at 23, he's still learning the game. He's still relatively young in that position. Centre backs after 25, 26, 27, that's when they really come into their peak. And he just knows he belongs there. Mings has had a few seasons at Bournemouth where he didn't really spark it up. And
I think an injury killed that though. I think.
Yeah, and then he's come to Villa, and I prefer Konsa myself. Yeah.
Fair. Craig Lowe, Grealish has a move to a big club in him this summer. 25 years old. He does. My concern is the only club I think that will go for him, that can afford him, is Man United. I do think that's the only club he could go to. Which, look, it's a good move for him. But I mean, look, if you ask me, would Grealish fit in the Liverpool squad? He would. He'd fit well in the Tottenham squad. I mean, Tottenham could have had him a few years ago, I believe, but the deal didn't go through. It's just how much would Villa want to lose him, and I think you're talking seriously big numbers. And I don't know in this summer who's going to have seriously big numbers apart from probably the two Manchester clubs.
Well, he could have gone to Spurs for 7.5 million, couldn't he? A couple of seasons back when he was in the Championship.
Yeah.
So you think, why didn't no one just take a punt on him? Everyone's known him since he's 19. Everyone's known about Jack Grealish for a long time. You just think why a top club didn't go in for him first. But, to be fair to him, he signed a new contract at Villa. And again, you say it's 70 million? Are we talking 70, 75 British premium? Is that what we're talking for Jack?
Probably at least that.
Yeah.
At least that. You'd be looking at the Maguire transfer fee. You'd be looking at that sort of level. Because the thing is, now some people will balk at that. People will balk at because it's the English tax. But you've got to think, how much is he worth to Villa? If you take, we've seen already the form recently Villa are in without Jack Grealish. So now, yes, you can use the money to replace him, but you're not going to find another Jack Grealish. So it's how much do they need to replace or give themselves opportunities to cover what he can do with two or three players, or because it could require Villa to change how they play to get the form they want. I'm backing Villa. I think Villa at home, and I just think they've got a bit more attacking threat about them. To me, Wolves, they've got a goal in them, but I think they've got the Sheffield United problem though. They've got a goal in them. I don't think they've got more than one. So I'm going for a 2-1 Villa win.
And just quickly on Dean Smith as well. a really good manager, who has a certain sort of ethos. There's a lot of people who rate Graham Potter, but Dean Smith, I think he goes under the radar a lot. I know they scraped through relegation last season, but he's kept him up. He brought Ollie Watkins. He's got a really young sort of youth of players at Villa with that exuberant energy that they play with. And you know what? He deserves a lot of credit, but it goes really unnoticed, especially with the media. He's a really good manager who's got his sort of discipline and structure in place at Villa. And you know what? Fair play to them. They're doing well this season. So top credit to Dean Smith.
I think the problem, sorry, just quickly, the problem they may have there is Dean Smith has brought them obviously a long way from the mid-table in the Championship when he took over. He got them into those playoffs and he'd managed to get them up to, of course, where they are now. You could argue challenging for Europe. But I feel like it's similar to what we were saying in the last stream with Solskjaer at United, that maybe he does have that limit to where he can bring them on. I honestly feel as good a job as Smith has done at Aston Villa, if they do want to get to that next level, I think they would have to consider replacing him. But you can't sack a manager who's done as well for them. I think things would have to go a bit wrong for them to turn it around then, but I don't think he'd be that man to take him to the next level.
It's interesting they can sustain it. That's the thing I'd say about Villa. I think if they keep Grealish and keep, Watkins, Konza, probably that's the big three for me for Villa in terms of the young players who can. I think obviously Martinez is probably one of the stars, but it's kind of like it's peak now. I think those players, the sky is literally the limit for them. It really is. I mean, there's so much potential with those. If they can keep two of those players together for another 2 years, it'll be interesting to see how Villa can push on. And look, obviously, I can't not praise Villa because what really impressed me, to be fair, about Dean Smith was maybe what separates him from, you say that Graham Potter, as you said, was he actually changed his idea a little bit against us at the weekend. They scored early, but he didn't decide to push on from that point. He's kind of sat back a little bit more and hits us on the counter. It wasn't glorious to watch, maybe, if you're being critical, but I think it was really well implemented, the system, and they never ever looked at risk of not getting a result. And it was what we call, if it was Mourinho, you call it a Mourinho masterclass. But I think Dean Smith, I just think, it's one of those. I just think if he was, I just think it's the fact he's a local manager. He's been at Villa all his career, and that he doesn't quite get the praise he deserves. I think those kind of managers always get seen as almost like more for the passion in terms of man management, not for the tactical sort of ideas and that lot. And I think Smith has shown, at every single club he's been at, he has got that tactical know-how, and that hurts to admit that as a Leeds fan, to be fair. You've got a bit of history of Dean Smith, but credit where it's due.
Well, we saw that with how he was at Brentford before he came to Villa. Brentford are another club who I wish Brentford had come up last year, partly because it was something different, but just the way that the structure and the talent spotted at Brentford. I mean, look, I think Konsa came from Brentford. I think Watkins, was he Brentford? And they've got another
Ben Rama as well.
Ben Rama, Brentford, and the young striker they've got now,
Ivan Toney.
Ivan Toney.
Brian
and Bueno there as well.
There clearly is. Whoever's talent spotted at Brentford, knows what they're doing. And if there's the likes of Dean Smith and that, he's able to spot them and use them. So you've got to give him credit where it's due. Right, we'll do a couple of quick fire ones then. Burnley, Arsenal. Avi?
I'm going to go with an Arsenal 2-0. I think they win at Turf Moor.
Matt, your favourite club?
I have 2-0 Arsenal as well.
Oscar?
I think they drop points, Arsenal. 1-1. I think I back Chris Wood to cause a bit of trouble in the air against Arsenal.
I also have 1-1. Sheffield United against Southampton. I'll go back to you, Oscar. What are we thinking?
1-0 Sheffield United. Not a great game at all, though.
Oh, you've definitely had the Joe memo, haven't you? Avi?
I'm going to go with 1-1. Brewster for Sheffield United and Minamino for Southampton.
You had to get him in. I knew him in. He's out today anyway.
He's not back, is he?
I don't know. Just let's say it to wind you up. Matt, what have you got?
I had 1-1 written down, but then I changed it to 2-0 Southampton. So I'm going to go 1-1.
Okay. So he went round the houses and came back to the same area.
I got to trust the gut.
Yeah, I've got 2-1 Southampton. I just think Danny Ings does what Danny Ings does, and I think that stops Southampton's rot of losses at the moment. And last one for the moment, Brighton, who can't score for Toffee, against Leicester, who are struggling with injuries at the moment. So, Oscar, how are we thinking?
2-1 Leicester. I just think Vardy I think Brighton try and play the high line. I think Potter gets a lot of praise, but high line against Vardy, big risk, 2-1 Leicester.
Okay. Matt?
I have 1-1.
1-1. Avi?
Brendan's definitely bottling this again. 1-0 Brighton.
I'm going 2-0 Leicester. I do think they might be, but I don't think it's going to be against Brighton. I just can't see who scores for Brighton. In the chat, going back to Sheffield United's game, Kev O'Sullivan is also back in Sheffield United. Naguib Mohammed, I'm sorry if I bastardised your name there, is going 1-0 Sheffield as well. So there's a few back in Sheffield at the moment. So, it'd be interesting. It certainly would give them a bit of hope. But also, Sheffield could do a little bit of luck at the moment. They've had absolutely none at the moment. In terms of the Leicester game, Dan Bailey's gone for a Leicester win. Kev's gone for a 3-0 Leicester. So it'd be interesting. And Laura Duffy's gone for Leicester to give away a penalty on purpose so they can win. Interesting. So, right. So the other thing we want to talk about the show was officiating. Now, the word VAR is banned. I am not talking about the guys who sit in a porter cabin and talk to people. I'm talking about the actual officiating on the pitch. Just more of a reading of the room, how we think people are managing it, how we think they actually manage the game. And that's also a phrase which is strong with controversy. We've heard that before, how you manage the game. I don't think you manage a game. I think you call it as you see it. There is, and then, because we've seen recently, I think it came out from the FA that they wanted us to clap the officials to show respect, which I think it's called reading the room, and that's not how you read the room. But what I would say is, in other sports, officials, while we can argue are more competent, are more respected. I in the past have played hockey, and you daren't argue with an official. And if you do, Joe, if you have a free kick in football, if you gob off to an official in hockey, they bring the free kick 10 yards further forward. You gob off again, it's another 10 yards further forward. Trust me, you self-police yourself very quickly to keep your mouth shut and be a bit more respectful. But the flip side of this is, while I don't think clapping the official is right at the moment because the mood around officiating is at an all-time low, I don't think I've ever seen it any lower. It does flip side that every official is branded, in my opinion, with the same brush. They're all shit. Not one person shit. Because everyone thinks they're all shit, you could say what you want. And the example I can give is Sean Massey, who to me is the best assistant referee in the league. She's one of the few assistants that if she puts a flag up, I would say 8-9 times out of 10, she's bang on. And I kind of go, okay, look, she makes mistakes. They all do. But it is leaving the way it's being handled, I think, media-wise, and the way it's being handled by the PGMO, it's leading to this torrent of abuse. And I think if you want officials talking and you want officials to say what they think or how they control the decision, they ain't going to do it in the current climate, because if you're an official and you say, I got that wrong, I haven't seen the replay, we all know the torrents of abuse that are coming down, and it wouldn't be worth doing. But just wanted to sort of get your guys doing it. But the VAR word is banned from it. It's more on how they handle themselves, how we think, interpretation and things like that. So, Avi, this is a subject you like to talk about sometimes. So,
yeah, she and Massey, she's been around the game for quite a while, hasn't she? As linesman since 2014-15, I think. I remember, I think even before then, because I remember when those two idiots who were in Qatar now, Richard Keys and Andy Gray, they said something about her, didn't they? Well, that's what got them the sack, really, from Sky, and rightly so. She does a fantastic job as a linesman. There's no doubt she does a fantastic job. Anyone who's sending her abuse is just pathetic. In terms of refereeing, we had characters. Oscar will remember, Matt will remember as well. Pierluigi Collina, right?
Legend, the goats of referees.
You would not want to go up to him and question anything, because why? He had the confidence and he had that stature as well, that look, I'm a referee, I'm going to manage this team, it's under my orders. But he hardly ever put a foot wrong, right? A master of the game who should be really the top man of the governing body when it comes to the refereeing on the whole, all over Europe. It's just not a Premiership problem. It's a problem all around Europe. Demir Scamona, Chris, you might know him. He was the Champions League 2019 referee.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any bad decisions. That handball on Mane when it hit Sissoko, that was a handball, right? He had stature. No one really questioned him. No one really went up to him. These referees have big personalities in stature. It seems that in England, the likes of Lee Mason, the likes of Michael Oliver, the likes of Martin Atkinson, right? Michael Oliver, I'll give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt because on the whole, generally, in the last sort of few years, he's been good. But the referee standard here is just poor. And they don't help themselves, Chris. So when they get abuse, the online abuse is uncalled for. Of course, it is personal issues and whatnot. But the likes of like Mike Riley, sometimes they want to be on camera just for show. They want to have that airtime. They literally do. It's like Clattenburg. He always wanted a bit of airtime on the pitch, you know. And then he fucked off to Qatar, wherever it was. It does seem that we have a fundamental problem in the English game with the refereeing. Yesterday was a prime example with the Kante handball. Some are saying it's a handball. Some are saying not. I think the referee should have had a good look at it on the screen. But for Paul Tierney to say, nope, it's not handball, carry on, I think that's where the inconsistency is, because Paul Tierney, it's hit his hand, Kante's hand, and he should have said, Martin, I think you should just look at it. I'm not telling you it's a penalty, or I'm not telling you you've got it wrong, but just have a look at it. What would it have taken? 1 or 2 minutes?
16 minutes, because we all know how long it takes to make a decision at the moment.
we had an incident yesterday at Craven Cottage. Matt might not agree, where they scored a goal and it literally sort of came off one of the defenders before he took the shot. If you're giving those for handballs, then we've got a serious problem in the English game.
If fairness to the official, if he doesn't disallow that, the official gets banned for the next week. That's not the official. That's the crappy rule. And ironically, the crappy rule now is if it accidentally hits your hand and a goal scored, it's allowed. It's allowed now, which, to be fair, is what it should be. But, you know, so this is where the media narrative or the narrative around officials, I think, is a bit harsh. Is in like that goal against Tottenham, in my eyes, is a goal. It should always be a goal because it's accidental. He's not stuck his arm out. It's not made so big. I mean, he's trying to make himself small in first. He's trying not to hit it. But the problem is that gets labelled in, this is how shit the referees are. Look at that. The referee couldn't give. Why is the referee giving that? But we've got to go. But he has to. If he doesn't give it, and that's where I think how it's presented isn't right. So people should be saying for something like that, that's not the official. That's the rule. But when we've seen some of the more atrocious ones, where, and it doesn't help with PGML, Mike Riley, the rule changes or the way they present, they find a new way of presenting the same goal. We've seen 3 goals disallowed for for the same reason sometimes, and they change the reason halfway through. What I find with referees, and Oscar, I'll let you jump in now, is it's how they don't manage a game. As in, you can tell when a game's getting out of hand. You can tell when a game is being slowed down. I mean, Klassenberg, I know he has his critics, but there is a reason why he's probably the last official we had who is a regular Champions League official. It's because he controls the game in a certain way with a certain level of authority. The players don't mess with him. Players don't take him on, and players know he'll. But the big thing is he was a very good communicator. I thought he would tell, look, I'm not giving that. That's too soft a contact, or come on, he hasn't touched you. And even if you don't agree with him, all the players would turn around and say, well, I knew what he'd given because he told me. But it wasn't like a effing him all the time. It was more of a controlled question, which I think is what we've got to get the balance right. I think you can question an official. I think you should question an official, but we need to get the balance right where it's not everyone around the referee and that, because we all know, we've said it. We say Liverpool are poor at this. Don't pressure the official because we know they're not. We know they won't respond to it. But what's your take on it, Oscar? Obviously, because we could be accused of being very Big Six bias a little bit. So, how have you found it? Obviously, because you've come up from Championship officiating to Premier League officiating. Is it better? Is it worse? Is it about the same?
I think the Championship was incredibly poor. I think the Championship was unbelievably poor. I mean, I think we went on a run. I think it was 60 games without a penalty. And then under Bielsa, with all the attacking play, we had kind of like 60, 70% of the attacking play. It didn't really add up why that was the case, why we didn't get any decisions. And to be fair, I don't think it's particularly great in the Premier League either. And I think what you've got to say too is that with no fans in the ground, it should be easier. It should be 2 or 3 times easier to officiate a game with no pressure from fans in the ground. No, we've seen it happen before in terms of a contentious decision, a 50-50. Is it a yellow card? Is it a red card? And sometimes the crowd might just influence it that little bit. It might just look like a little bit worse in live play. The crowd might react. You've got 70,000 people roaring for a red card. Subconsciously, just be pressurising that referee a little bit more. So it should be the easiest spell for the referees at this moment in time. There's no fans in the ground. There's a lot less pressure, I think, in terms of making decisions in that lot. But it hasn't worked out that way. That's the frustration. It hasn't worked out that way. And I think you make a very good point about Mark Clattenburg there, Chris, because I think the big thing with Clattenburg was that he wasn't scared to make the wrong decision. I think a lot of the referees these days, it's almost like, I don't want to use the word robots, but I think we're so caught up in I think the big thing is you've got to separate what the difference between the rules being poor and the referee being poor, because sometimes it's not the referee's fault. The rules that are actually in place, as you already said, are just not great. They just make no sense. They're too vague. They're not the right rules to have anyway. In terms of the offsides, in terms of it's got to be like the shirt sleeves and that lot. Oh, just absolutely, just
the rules are changing as well. They're changing. That's the thing.
It's changing. Yeah. You can't move the goalposts halfway through the season. It's madness.
So a little fair play to the referees. I'll give them a little bit of a chance. They will be still in that mindset where they're thinking about a previous incident earlier on in the season, but the rules have changed, and now they're sort of thinking, "Wait a minute, should I or shouldn't I?" So I do give them the benefit of the doubt in some games, but when there's clear and obvious decisions where that it should be overturned, or you should know that the decision should stand, it doesn't. And it's like, oh man, here we go again. And all these ex-footballers, they all give it the Larry Biggins on Sky TV, on BT, saying, oh, referees have done wrong this, they've got that wrong, they got that wrong. Why don't they stand behind the screen and let them do the job and see if they can do it any better? Because they're quick to judge. They're quick to judge that the Carragers, the Nevilles, on BT Sport, the Maccas, the Owens, they're quick to judge about, oh, he got that wrong, oh, Mike Wiley got that wrong, or Oliver got that wrong. But why don't you then get on behind the screen at Stockley Park and go and officiate one game and let's see how well you do? Because you're supposed to be the professionals of football. Go on then, just do it.
But how many times do you hear one of them say, that's never a goal, that's never a penalty? And then you hear, God forbid, even Martin Tyler going, well, that is the rule. And they go, well, it's a stupid rule. You go, well, so the official hasn't got it wrong. Exactly. That's where I mean the presentation, where you go, they should be saying like I've openly said it, I hate the handball rule at the moment. The one where, if it accidentally hits your hand, it's automatically disallowed. Whereas there's more leeway defensive-wise. I think it's ridiculous. Because sometimes I'm like, what's the player supposed to do? The offside rule is the offside rule. Is you've got to be at the moment, not level, you've got to be behind play until they change the rule. That's the rule.
Chris, let me ask you a quick question, Chris. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah. I want to ask you this question. If that Kante handball had happened on the line yesterday at Chelsea's goal, on the line, like let's say literally just Firmino sort of flicked off a header and hits him on the line, is that a handball or not?
Yeah.
It is, right?
Because it's a definite goal, isn't it? Although it's accidental. But yeah, I mean, but I must admit, my thing with the Kante one is when I saw it, like we all do, shout handball. When I saw the replay, I was like, I had to have the thought of, if that was given against us, like we all felt aggrieved by the Gomez. We felt aggrieved by the Gomez one, but the Gomez one was 10 yards. There's a good 10 yards difference. If that was given against us, I'd have gone, that's a bit shit, that. I wouldn't have liked it. Anyway, Matt, you've had to say, yeah. But just to add on to this, Barry Devaney makes a very good point. Arsene Wenger is now heavily involved in FIFA, should have a more intelligent football people needed, which is a good point. Now, for those who haven't seen it or don't follow, if you follow Dale Johnson of ESPN, he is a little bit, I know I said I wouldn't use the word, he's the VAR expert, as in he will go through controversial VAR results, saying this is why in the current rules it's given, and this is why it isn't given. And first, he makes it clear that's a refereeing mistake. That's the rule. So if you don't like it, blame the rule, don't blame the player. But he's got a very interesting still of Raheem Sterling of a goal disallowed for offside. And we all looked at it and went, and if you see the still, your goes offside. But everyone tells me offside should be off the feet. When you see the still, to me, from the naked eye, he's 2 yards off. He looks miles offside. And but when you actually look at the still, the back of his heel is just onside. So you're going to have the other, if we do the daylight rule, or we're having the other problem of more goals going to be given that 5 years ago would have just been flagged as miles offside and no one would have queried. But Matt, your view on the officials.
They don't make it easy to respect them. And look, anyone who's targeting any sort of personal abuse, anything other than a criticism of an official's performance in a game, anyone going any further than that needs to really, really reconsider what they're doing. And look, that can come back to this whole social media anonymity thing. But Lee Mason for Lewis Dunk's free kick against West Brom, for me, shows the level of incompetence that some referees have in the Premier League. I agree with Abby that Michael Oliver has probably been one of the best in the bunch in the last couple of years, but the pressure that referees are under from players, I think, does come into things a lot, and Lee Mason probably felt pressured by the West Brom players to overturn that, because they're saying it's unfair, the keeper's still on his post, but at the end of the day, the referee blew his whistle, the free kick was taken, it should have stood. I think that there shows that there, no matter what way you want to look at this, there is a level of incompetence about referees in that. Now, Abby brought up Pierluigi Collina, who of course is a formidable figure in the officiating world, and there was an incident in the League One a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure a lot of people would know about it, and Darren Drisdale, who's an official down there, ended up actually squaring up to Alan Judge of Ipswich Town for, I think Ipswich were denied a penalty. And go back to what you said, it's Chris, about if they get a decision wrong, they're banned for a week. Drisdale was banned for a week. Now, we did come out and he apologised to Alan Judge, but for me, one of the strangest things was the praise and the love that he got on social media for doing that. Look, whether the decision was wrong or not, look, I work with Opta and I work a lot on the League One and League Two. The officiating down there is absolutely atrocious. You see, like, I'll be keeping an eye on 9-10 games every weekend, and the amount of shocking decisions that you see they're laughable. But you'd expect the higher you get up in the leagues to see the officiating improve. And look, to some degree, there is a natural improvement there. There's a reason Michael Oliver is in the Premier League and Drisdale is down in the League One. But it's not at the level that it should be. You're looking at how many English referees are chosen for Champions League games, how many are chosen for World Cup games. For me, that's a massive concern. But I honestly do think the biggest problem is the laws of this game. And I'm not going to use the banned word, but I feel like people have tried to put a definitive reasoning and a final definition on handballs and offsides that just cannot be done. Each incident with handballs and offsides is very different to the last. And there could be a 99% similarity between two instances, but that extra 1% could be the thing that sways it from a handball or not a handball, or offside or not an offside. Now, this rule with accidental handballs and the build-up to a goal leads to the goal being disallowed came into play after Willy Bolly scored for Wolves against Manchester City. Now, what happened in that one? City were 1-0 up. Wolves got a free kick, whipped into the box. Willy Bolly went for the diving header. It missed his head, and his hand is naturally down to stop him from hitting the ground. The ball smacked off his hand and went into the bottom corner. You cannot possibly tell me that is the same as Josh Maja having his goal ruled out for Fulham last night. I was doing a live watch on for that game, and I was actually angry that goal was disallowed. It is a perfectly good goal. Mario Lemina is standing there. He was waiting for a cross into the box. It was a poor cross. Davinson Sanchez, being the absolute fool that he is, tried to clear it, ended up hitting Lemina. His arm is by his side, drops to Maja, he fires it in. Now, I understand the argument there that by the rule, by the law of the game, that is a handball, the goal should be disallowed. But my biggest qualm with that is, if that had happened in the middle of the park and the referee saw that, Lemina's hand is by his side. It is in a natural position. If his hand wasn't there, the ball still would have fallen to Josh Maja. I cannot for the life of me understand how anybody could look at that and say it's a handball. But look, by the rule, I suppose you have to say that it is. Now, that rule is changing. On the 1st of July, that rule is going back to... Actually, first of all, the rule before yesterday actually had changed. So last season, it was any accidental handball in the build-up to a goal, the goal is disallowed. That was changed this season for any handball leading directly to a goal, accidental or intentional, the goal will then be disallowed. Now, on the 1st of July, they're changing that rule. They're taking it out. It's back exactly what it was that day Bolly scored against Manchester City. If you have an accidental handball in the lead up to a goal, it's disallowed. Now, that begs the question. Next season, after that rule is changed, that Willy Bolly goal against Manchester City, would that stand? I'd say for the four of us as fans sitting here, we probably don't know the answer to that, which is to some degree acceptable. We're not going to have an expert understanding of everything to do with football and all that. But the question that I want to ask is, do the referees know if that will stand next season? And I honestly don't think they do. No. Abby spoke about the Sissoko handball in the Champions League final. I don't think that was a handball. I think the rule changed. So that final that season was played on the 1st of July. So the 30th of June, 1st of July is usually the cutoff point between different seasons. So that game is usually played before the 1st of July. However, for whatever reason, whatever way the calendar fell, that was played on the 1st of July. There was a law change on the 1st of July that year for the handball, which they actually pushed back a day because of the Champions League final. So under the existing law, which actually overran a day, that's not a handball. But under the new law, which came into effect the day after the Champions League final, that is a handball. And that's where the referees have their biggest problems here. The laws are changing every single day. They don't understand. And it's not a criticism of them as Rajiv said there, 1st of June, not July. Referees don't understand the law. And they can only do so much when they're in this position where they're being told every other day there's a different directive, there's a different law, there's a different rule, there's a different interpretation of this. And I think in rugby, the best way they do it is how the referee interprets the law and interprets that incident on that day is the law beyond any doubt beyond any argument. They should bring that into football. But
then there are certain officials. Would you trust their common sense?
Exactly. Yeah.
There is that way. I mean, Barry is on fire tonight. Another excellent point is players have to take a lot of the players off, throw themselves to the ground, hard to judge at full speed, and it is. I mean, that is where the banned word is supposed to help. But that's where someone like a Clattenburg is, and you got to be very careful with this. Know your players. And I'm not saying you judge. It's hard not to prejudge a player, but we all know there are certain players we know are more likely to go down. But the big change I'd like to see in football is the reason players go down is because that's the only way they know an official will give anything. If a player stays on his feet and he's hacked, he stays on his feet, they won't get it. That's a cultural thing, not just a cultural thing in English, but that's a cultural thing in football. Is if you don't go down, you don't get it. So until there's a rule change or a directive change across football that says, if you are hacked or you are clipped, but you stay on your feet, it's still a foul or it's still a penalty. Because that's the reason players do it. We all know the same. I remember lambasting Coutinho because he didn't go down the Palace game because he was hacked and he tried to stay on his feet and take a shot, which we missed. And that was late in the game. And we're all like, go down, get the penalty, we'll get the winner. But that's me as a fan. But once the game's over, it's not something that sits comfortable with me, like telling players go down. But that's a cultural way of, I would say, how football is at the moment. That's the way we're going. But I mean, if you want to see really bad officiating, or you want to see where things aren't taken seriously, where there's disparity in leagues, is I watch a lot of the Women's Super League and the Women's Championship. They tend to get referees from League 2 men or lower standard to do it. This is for the top league in English women's football, and it's atrocious. And they don't speak to players, and it's like they make it up as they go along. But part of me thinks I think referees do feel like they make it up as they go along because I've never known so many rule changes. I've never known the offside law changed so many times in the last 3 years. The handball rules changed. Before that, it barely changed. So it's interesting. I think it was Kev who brought it as well. Is there is a Dutch way of doing the offside, which to me at the moment seems the most fair. It's a bit like the cricket version of umpire's call, where they give you a leeway of, it's 10 centimetres, I think it is. So if you're level, like the Werner goal, that was this last night, that in the Dutch rules, that would have been given because he's basically level. And it gives benefit of the doubt to the attacker. And to me, that is what you should do with football, is benefit of the doubt to the attacker if it's level. Level or just ahead, people historically in football have gone, that's the way. But again, that then takes the pressure off the official because then they know linespeople will only put the flag up if it looks obvious. If it's now, they won't do level or just ahead because they're too scared that it's going to get pulled up for being wrong. So we'll have to see what happens. So cool. The other thing to mention is we are on the race to get to 10,000 subscribers. And when we do get to 10,000 subscribers, there is going to be a big prize giveaway. Now, as of yet, I have no idea what the prize giveaway is, but I've heard it is good. When we get to 9,000, we're not talking like a Liverpool air freshener or something like that. We're talking something quite substantial. I believe when we get to 9,000 subscribers, that we will be revealing what's the prize. So please tell family, tell friends. We try our best. We try to be as balanced as possible. And the idea of this show is this, hence why I have a Leeds fan and a Tottenham fan, is it's the Friday forecast. So it's to talk about all football, not just Liverpool centric. So even, just to give people a different view. And the other one, just so, although we haven't mentioned it recently, but is Keen Strong is still going. The GoFundMe page is still on our Twitter feed. So if you can donate to it, please do. If you're not able to do it, just give it a retweet or a share. That'll be much appreciated. And if you keep an eye on our Twitter feed, with Sean Davron and his friends are doing a big walk in March. I think they're trying to do 300k in March for Keen Strong. That is some going. So please, if you can, for those who aren't aware of what Keen Strong is, Keen is a young lad who lives in America and has unfortunately been diagnosed with a brain tumor. He's only, I believe, 18 months old. So it's a horrible situation to be in. And the idea of the GoFundMe is to help towards his medical expenses, to help, get the poor lad better. Because, he's been through a lot and he's only 18 months old. So if you can, it really was appreciated. And if you can smash the like button, that also would be appreciated. Right, back to the football. So the big game of Sunday, the Manchester derby, Man City versus Man United. Man United currently to 21 games undefeated away from home. City just the train keeps on going. I think they're on 20 wins in a row, which, look, like them all over them, this season they've clicked into gear and they found the way. They're arguably probably the most solid defensively they've ever been, and probably a little bit more pragmatic than City normally are. United, they normally find a way in these away games, but games against the top six, especially away from home, does seem to be a bit of their kryptonite. Anything below the traditional top six, United are just getting the job done. They're doing it really well, hence why they're second. But Oscar, Man United, your favourite team, and City, which is not far behind. How are you feeling for this game?
I agree with you in terms of City. I think defensively, I've never seen not just a City team, a Pep Guardiola team, in terms of being so solid, in terms of being comfortable without the ball. I mean, certain games this season, I think previous City teams you look at and think going forward are probably better in terms of you kind of had Sterling, Sane, Aguero. That was a really good front three, and then obviously David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne. And it worked really well in terms of that sense. But you always felt like you could get at them in terms of that City team. But now I look at them and think, you got Bernardo Silva going in there. It's basically just a workhorse and very, very good on the ball, of course, as well. He offers that little bit more work rate than maybe like David Silva would in that kind of sense. Ruben Diaz has come in, done really well. John Stones has probably, for me, been one of the players of the season. I'd probably go that far. And then Gundogan is the player of the season for me so far this season across the league. So I look at it from that sense and think City, I can't see Man United causing them that many problems. I just think they're just too solid. I mean, just too solid out of possession, and they'll have a lot of the ball anyway. I think the interesting thing will be, or what could make the game interesting, is just what Man United's approach will be. I mean, if they sit back, I just think it's inevitable that they lose the game. There's no way you can sit back when you've got someone like Kevin De Bruyne on the pitch who can find that bit of space. You've got people like Jesus and Sterling who will score goals, and players off the bench. Mahrez, the last couple of games, has been a really big clutch player for them in terms of stepping up in big moments and really deciding games for him. So Foden as well. There's so many options in that Man City team that, they're going to cause. I think they're going to cause Man United a lot of problems. I think the thing with Man United is this season is, I know they're second in the table. I know this might sound really, really salty, etc. But
it's not like you.
Are they really the second best team in the league?
No chance.
I mean, if Liverpool have Van Dijk, I just don't see. I don't see them not being second. And I genuinely do think it's that big in terms of you got Fabinho back into his main position, Henderson, THIAGO playing just ahead of him, and then the front three. I just think it all clicks into gear a lot better. I think you see Alexander-Arnold probably does a lot better defensively because he knows he's got that extra cover in terms of Van Dijk, in terms of in the channels. They're not the second best team in the league for me, and that might sound really salty. Fair enough if it does, but I genuinely don't think they're going in the right direction.
Playing devil's advocate, if you're second after 27 games, you deserve to be the second best team in the league. Now, when the season's over, will he still be there? I'm not convinced, because I think if Chelsea keep this form up that they're doing at the moment, I think Chelsea might overtake them. Are Liverpool the seventh best team in the league on current form? Yeah. Now, when everyone's fit, you can say, "Oh no, this time we'll do this, do that." But Liverpool ain't got that, and I think that's unfortunately for us as Liverpool fans, we've had to swallow that bitter realization that with what we've got available, we ain't near that level at the moment. So I just want to bring this up. Statman Baines has just put up a comment. I just don't want you to think I'm ignoring the subject, which is, what do you make of the Origi interview? Not apologising by saying he doesn't care about fans' criticism, and saying he could have been a maths debater when he was younger, so he'll take no criticism. I'll be fair, I've not seen the interview. I don't know where it comes from, what the publication is. So until I've read it, I don't really want to comment on it. It seems from what I've seen of Origi, he doesn't do interviews very often, and that doesn't seem an in character or a well read comment, if that's what he said. But until I've read it, I can't really give a comment. So we'll probably pick it up either on next week's show, or we'll pick it up on probably one of the other shows this week. But just don't want people to think I'm ignoring it. Sorry, Matt, the Manchester derby.
It's City's, isn't it? City's all day long. I mean, we had the stats here last week for the United game against Chelsea, and they scored one goal against the Big Six this season. It was a Bruno Fernandes penalty, and they went on to lose 6-1 in that game against Spurs. Great day. They haven't won now in their last 7 games against the Big Six and Leicester. Bruno Fernandes, 1 goal and 1 assist in the last, what it would be now, 720 minutes against the Big Six. United just, it's not looking good for them. Now, look, you can break that record, as you said, they're unbeaten on the road since, I think it's the end of last January, start last February. So essentially since Bruno Fernandes came in, they haven't lost a game on the road. But it's going to come to an end eventually. And coming up against this Man City side, who are utterly formidable. Phil Foden have been rested during the week, and I think last weekend as well. Was João Cancelo maybe, or Ilkay Gundogan, one of them was rested during the week as well. City have probably the best squad I've ever seen in the Premier League. I remember that game against Arsenal. The 9 players they had on their bench, they probably could have played just those 9. 2 players less than Arsenal, they probably still would have beaten them. The quality in that team is utterly sensational. And you have to remember that's without Sergio Aguero on form. He hasn't scored in the Premier League since the 21st of January 2020 against Sheffield United. So again, almost a year and a month and a half. They're incredible. And I've said this bit about in terms of Liverpool and their injuries this season. I think City and Liverpool have approached this entire thing in 2 very, very different ways. And City have been a lot more pragmatic, which I think is why they are still able to be as effective as they are. And I think Liverpool's reluctance to do so maybe playing a part in those muscle injuries and stuff. But City, they're so much more pragmatic. But what they haven't lost is that keen eye for goal and that ability to kill off games. And they struggled really early in the season. People will forget they were 16th in November, which was about 2.5 months into the season. But since losing to Spurs at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, they've been unbeaten. I think they've drawn one game in the Premier League after that and 1 game in the Champions League as well, but they've won every other game. They've been incredible, swiping aside any team that comes in front of them, and the sheer quality in that side, the understanding of those players, the technical ability in that front line. You're looking at Riyad Mahrez, a player who struggles to get into that starting 11, and Ferran Torres, who we're going to see a lot more from in the coming weeks, coming months. I think City are, without a shadow of a doubt, going to run away with this game, and I do fear for United. And look, it's a fantastic record they have on the road without being beaten in so long, but it's going to come to an end because this Man City side are walking away with this league title.
Okay, Avi?
Yeah, United have had their forward for that quartet of Greenwood, Fernandes. Well, not Greenwood so much, but especially Rashford, Fernandes, Cavani. They've been fit majority of the season, and I know they've got a little bit of injury to Pogba, but I think they've been lucky. I think that is a false position for them, Chris, to be second in the league. 51 points. It's not a lot of points, is it, at this stage of the league? It's just the other teams around them are just poorer. Chelsea with Lampard. And all that swap change. And then obviously there's us and then Spurs, they've been underachieving. I think in terms of everyone speaking, wax lyrical of Manchester City, they've been good, they've been great. But ultimately they're going to be judged whether they win the Champions League or not. That's how Pep's time is actually going to be judged at Man City. It's incredible what they've done. They did the treble a few seasons back, the domestic treble, winning the league. Last season, I think, did they win the FA Cup and the League Cup? Was it? No, they didn't win the FA Cup. They won the League Cup. This season, they look as if they're in another League Cup final. They've walked away with the league. But ultimately, Manchester City are going to be judged by the European success. I thought last season was their, they should have really got to that final, to lose to Lyon in the manner that they did, especially in one-legged ties as well, in a neutral ground. I thought last season was their real chance. I think this season, I can't see them winning the Champions League yet again. But yeah, I think they'll dispose of Manchester United on it's Sunday, isn't it? The game.
Sunday game, yeah.
Sunday game. Yeah, I think they'll dispose of Manchester United. I think United are in a bit of free fall as well. I think they've got Milan this coming week as well in the Europa League, so it's going to be squeaky bum time. And I think they play Leeds away as well soon, and I think Leeds will want to be getting some revenge after the Old Trafford game, which could have gone either way. We laugh about it, but what was it, 6-2? It could have easily been a 6-6 game, that, because Leeds had their fair share of chances. But yeah, I fancy City again for Sunday. I'm going with 3-1.
Okay, cool. So what are you thinking, Oscar, score-wise?
I'd go the same. I think 3-1 as well. I think they might just get a goal. I think you got people like Fernandes on the pitch, Rashford. Probably will get 1 goal, but there's just too much quality in that City team for him to keep them at bay. So 3-1 for me.
Okay, Matt, what are you saying?
I'm going 3-0 City.
Yeah, cool. I've got 3-1. I just think City always, at the moment, they feel impregnable. They just feel like they find a way. I do think United will score because they've got, especially Cavani. I think Cavani and Rashford, they do give you an opportunity. And we've seen United's away record against City actually isn't bad in the last couple of years. But as we've seen with City this year, they've learned from the mistakes of last year. They've fixed a couple of their weaknesses and they've just added more quality to their squad. And this is not me being salty. They've had the rub of the green with injuries, as have Chelsea, as have a few other teams. That's how you need that. But the difference is with City is they've had that little bit of rubber green with the level of injuries compared to other club. But just because you get the rub of the green, you've got to take it. And in fairness to them, they have taken it. And Chelsea under Tuchel have done the same. So you've got to give credit where it's due. Rajiv has got 3-1 to City. Kev O'Sullivan is going 4-1. Craig Lowe is going 5-1. I think someone had a 2-2. Oh,
5-1.
Nagib's got 2-2 as well. So some high score results there. Right, quick fire questions. The exciting game of the weekend: West Brom versus Newcastle. So who wants to go for this one? Because like I say, you're dying to talk about this one.
It's got a 1-0 set piece either way, just written all over it. It's just that I've said before, the ball will not see the ground. You use your neck like this throughout the game. It just, honestly, the ball just will not see the grass. 1-0 Newcastle. I'll go off, definitely off a set piece. It'll just be a shockingly bad game of football, but I think Newcastle will just about have the quality to win it.
Okay, Matt?
I don't share Oscar's optimism in seeing a goal. I'm going to go 0-0.
God. Abby?
I don't want either team to win because I hate Fat Sam and I hate Big Head Bruce. So I'm going to go with a 1-0. I'm going to go with 1-1.
Yeah, I've got a 1-2. I don't hate Steve Bruce. I can't dislike him. The Gravy Boys are a slightly different story. Just a general question, because I said this probably about a month ago, and obviously people weren't impressed with my comments. Newcastle in trouble? Because I think I said Newcastle in trouble, and then they went and got a big win. But they feel a little bit teetering now. Now, are they going to get away with it because the three below them are just horrific? Or, is someone like a Fulham or someone going to cause a bit of an upset with Newcastle?
Possible.
I'll go first. I think they are in trouble. Newcastle, I actually feel really sorry for them because Newcastle are one of those, I'm not sure if it's for you lot, but they've always been like your sort of second team, especially with Kevin Keegan in the 90s when they came through the Division 1 and then they were playing great football. And then they could have and should have won the league back in 95, 96. They've always been a club, and obviously the Rafa connection, Benitez, they've just never had the luck, have they, in terms of ownership? They had Freddie Shepherd, they had that Mr. Hall, whatever his name was. Then they got stuck with this idiot. What's his name?
Mr. Sports Direct.
Sports Direct, that's the one. Mike Ashley. They've been stuck with like managers like Steve Bruce, Pardew in the past. I actually feel sorry for them. They could go down. You just never know. West Brom, if Fat Sam gets his way and they beat Newcastle tomorrow, they're only 3 behind. Well, no, they'll be 6 behind, but you just never know. And especially with this turmoil in Newcastle, isn't there? Because there was a little scrap between Matt Ritchie and Steve Bruce this week.
Yeah, there's that. So, I think the key injuries is killing them as well. I mean, when they signed Keller Wilson, I thought, well, that'd be Newcastle safe because Wilson is a proven goal scorer, and I thought St. Maximin would also, be another season more experienced. But unfortunately, St. Maximin has missed pretty much the whole season due to the side effects of COVID, and I think now he's picked up a muscle injury. But I think the loss of Wilson's a bit of a killer because when we've played them, we've gone like, oh, we should beat Newcastle, but don't get Wilson the ball because if it falls near him, he's deadly. Yeah. And I think when you look now, you're going, it's Joe Linton now, or it's the lad who was at West Brom last year, Dwight Gale. They're just not clinical enough for what they need. Oscar, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I can only agree. I think you look at the teams around them. I think Fulham. I think if you look purely right now between the two teams, ignoring the league table for a minute, who's the better team between Fulham and Newcastle? I think it's clearly Fulham at the minute, and I just think the points difference isn't big. I think whenever I watch Fulham, I think I like what I see. I think they're defensively a lot more solid. And Newcastle, I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to do. I think in terms of St. Maximin, I think if Newcastle could get St. Maximin, Fraser, Wilson, Almiron on the pitch at the same time as the front four, they'd be miles clear of relegation. It doesn't matter what you think of Steve Bruce as the manager. You can just get that to work. That's just guaranteed goals. That's guaranteed kind of 20 or 30 goals a season easily, probably more than that. And I just look at them and think, between them, Fulham, Brighton, yeah, I'm not going to say Fulham and Brighton are fantastic, but they're definitely looking better than Newcastle are. So yeah, I think Newcastle are in the relegation scrap, no doubt about it. And quite easily, if they maybe decide to move on Steve Bruce, if they get that wrong, if they time that wrong or don't do it at all, it could easily get even worse than Newcastle. But they do always seem to pick up, I think throughout Bruce's time there, they always seem to just pick up that win. Yeah, that win.
Yeah,
like you just
they seem to go. It's how long you can get. It's how long you get away with doing that win. So
exactly.
Next game, Spurs Palace. Oscar, stick with you. Spurs Palace.
2-0 Spurs.
Avi?
1-1 because Matt's online.
Fair enough. Someone had to replace Joe. I'll say 2-0 Spurs.
I've got 2-1 and West Ham Leeds. Avi?
Oscar's on the show for the first time, so I'm going Leeds 2-1.
Okay. Matt?
Grizz will be proud of me. I'm going with a 2-2.
Oh, you copied me. Okay. Oscar, what are we going for the Leeds?
Avi's more optimistic than me. I'm going 1-1, and I'd be happy with it. I'd be happy with that, to be fair. I think it'd be a good result for us, but 1-1.
Okay. Right. Now, let's do last game. The two most informed sides in the league. Oh, sorry, no. So we're doing Liverpool. Liverpool against Fulham at Fortress Anfield. No, that's gone as well. So this is a fun game. Liverpool, worst home run now in our history. A record I never thought I'd see get broken. I never thought I'd see us get broken. But another centre back has fell over, so that's a good start. And we're facing a Fulham side who, we did well to get a 1-1 draw against them at their place. And to be honest, I saw bits of a Tottenham game. They make life difficult for you, and they've got a bit of pace on attack, and they've got in Anderson someone an organizer at the back. So, Oscar, give me some hope, or don't. Oh,
I think the big, not a great matchup because defensively they're solid. Sorry, did I cut out them for a bit?
Yeah, you're back now. It's all right.
Am I back? I'm back. I think in terms of the matchup itself, in terms of Fulham, in terms of Anderson's been really good for him. They're well organised. It's not a great matchup for Liverpool, this, because you've played a lot of teams at home, Brighton, Burnley, in terms of being able to just nick a 1-0 kind of thing or a 0-0. And you could say Fulham can do that. But the big factor for me and why I think Liverpool will be okay in this game, and I think maybe we'll slowly start to turn the tide a little bit, Jota. I think Jota, not just Jota himself, I think it just gives that front three. I'm not saying the front three doesn't care anymore. I'm not saying that at all. I think it just gives it that subconsciously, that bit of a boost, because it's all well and good saying Mane, Salah, Firmino have got to keep going, but there's no pressure on them from that bench without Jota. It's not like Origi. Liverpool, the big difference between Liverpool and Man City, and me and Chris, we've already discussed this quite a lot, to be fair. City, when they're struggling in the game, can bring on Mahrez, they can bring on Ferran Torres, they can bring on Aguero from time to time. They can, they can afford to drop these best players and rotate all the time. Liverpool haven't got that. But when you've got Jota there, all of a sudden, that three will suddenly think, Mane, Firmino, Salah will think, okay, if I don't perform here, I'm coming off. I'm not starting this game. And I just think that'll give them that natural kick up the backside, if you like, a little bit. I think they have been underperforming a little bit. Not Salah. Salah's been superb throughout the season. Okay, he's had the odd bad game, but if you're producing the end product Salah's producing, I don't really think you care what his performances are like. If he's producing that end product, honestly, it's just gold dust at any level. Having a goals from that right hand side, a left-footed goal scorer, it's just you don't really see much of that. You don't really see much of that these days. And but yeah, in terms of Mane and Firmino, obviously they've got to step up. I think Mane's just been a bad couple of weeks. I think Mane's first half of the season was okay. I remember a game against Chelsea, more than okay. But okay is underestimating a bit. I think against Chelsea, if we get a double against Palace as well, that 7-0 game, we looked really good in that. I just think the last couple of weeks he's dropped a little bit. And Jota there, all of a sudden he's got a bit of competition on the left. Firmino, I think Firmino's had a sustained period of kind of, well, he's not been scoring goals. He's not really scored goals for a while now, really consistently. But he's is so crucial to how the system works at the minute. But I just think it's going to naturally be a boost having that bit more competition in the squad. Yeah, defensively there's still problems, but I don't think Fulham have got the quality to really expose that. I don't think it's that kind of game. I think there's only a couple of teams who will really expose that. So I'm going to back Liverpool there, 2-0.
Cool. Okay. Matt?
It's going to be a really boring game, I think, and it's one of those that Liverpool, I think, will grind out and manage to get that result. You know, of course, Spurs played Fulham last night, and it was a game that it was a game of two halves, I think is the best way to put that. You know, we came out and we're typically slow starters, and that's how the game started. Fulham had a few half chances early on in the game, and we did manage to wrestle back control of that. And once we kind of brought the game to Fulham, I think they did struggle a bit with our quality and our power in the middle of the park, and then the attacking line, of course, which I think anyone would really struggle against. But in that second half, we took off Dele and Bale, and we brought on Sissoko and Lamela, and we went defensive. And as soon as we did that, Fulham, they smelled the chance there to get a goal. And as soon as they had that tiny inkling of confidence, they came at us, and they probably deserved. Well, look, they did deserve at least a point. I think that disallowed goal, as I already said, was an absolute farce, and it should have been at least 1-1 when that happened. But they had chances aside from that. Lloris made a fantastic save off a Joachim Andersen header, and even about 30 seconds before the disallowed goal, Josh Maja had an effort well saved at the front post by Hugo Lloris. So I think, as we were saying earlier, kind of United being so high up in the table, they're probably not the second best team in the league. Fulham at the bottom probably aren't the third worst team in the league. You know, I think they're playing some really good football, and they're a team that are really, really tough to beat. They're stubborn, and they don't concede a lot of goals. As I was saying, I think it's like 4 goals conceded in their last 7 games, and they are grinding out a lot of draws. And credit to Scott Parker, because it didn't look as though there was any hope earlier in the season, but now I do agree that perhaps Fulham could be chasing Newcastle, and it's not, as we thought a couple of months ago, it's not going to be a straightforward relegation of West Brom, Sheffield United and Fulham. I think there could be a real battle on the hands there, but Brighton, of course, not out of that yet either. But Liverpool should have more than enough to beat that team, but I said the same when you played Brighton, I said the same when you played Burnley. And there's other games that you haven't kind of done that this season. I said the exact same. Now, I brought out the stat that, you know, Liverpool have conceded more successful through balls in behind their defence than any other team in the league this season. And that, for me, is just one of the many stats that does show how much they're struggling without the partnership of Van Dijk and Gomez. And you don't need stats to see how much they're missing them. It's crazy how much it is affecting them. But with players of the quality of Van Dijk, and Van Dijk turned them from, you know, a kind of top 4 team into the team they were, and now his absence is putting them back down into that scope of, will they be in the Champions League, will they not be? And this is when you expect the kind of players around them, the players further forward in the team, that midfield trio and that front three, to kind of take games by the scruff of the neck and be the ones to really get the result for Liverpool. And before Van Dijk, before Alisson, a lot of the time it was a case for Liverpool of simply outscoring the opposition. And they're not really able to do that at the moment, with the front three kind of struggling, and that midfield is not quite gelling. And look, missing Henderson and Fabinho in the middle of that midfield is absolutely crazy. You know, I've always been kind of on the fence with Henderson. You know, non-Liverpool fans will say he's terrible. Liverpool fans will say he's unbelievable. I think he is in that middle ground, or I thought he was in that middle ground, but now that he is back in that Liverpool defence and you're missing him in that midfield three, I think I'm really starting to see just how important he is to that system. And he is a system player. You know, I don't think he'd step into any other midfield of the big teams in Europe. But in that Liverpool midfield, he's the perfect player to be in there. It's not Thiago. I don't think he's the metronome for them. I think he's a bit too slow. And to push him a bit further forward, maybe he could have more of an effect. But somehow it's just not working for Liverpool. But against Fulham, a team fighting relegation, you'd really, really have to hope that they do have the ability to do that. And as I said, that front three at any moment can turn it on and can beat any team in the league. But it's just getting that out of them at the moment seems to be the struggle. But having said that, 2-1 Liverpool.
2-1. Okay. Avi? Mixed bag in the comments, I would say. Some hopeful of a win, others predicting more of the same. You know, it's difficult to say keep the faith, but you know, where are you at this moment?
Positive as ever, Chris. You know me. I'm not gonna, dwell on the 5 losses that have happened at Anfield. I'm just waiting to crack open my bottle of champagne because I'm just waiting for us to win in 2021 at home, so I can open it and have a drink. I'm going for a resounding 5-0 to Liverpool on Sunday. And I would love to be proven wrong, but we're definitely putting 5 past them.
Oh God, this is you not drinking as well. That's even worse. Go on then, just for my own amusement, pick me a team that you think Klopp will go for, and then we'll hear what you'd like to go. What do you think we'll go with?
Oh, shall I go with what I would like?
Go what you'd like, and then we'll go. Then we'll have a discussion what we think.
I think it should be Alisson in goal. I think you should go with Ox at right back. I think you should go with Phillips and Davis if Kabak ain't fit. Robertson on the left. I'll play Fab, THIAGO, and I'll play Gini, and I'll play Salah, Mane, and Jota.
Okay, so you're dropping Trent for Ox, who's never played.
Oh, sorry, I'd play Trent, Fab, and THIAGO. I'll drop Gini and Jones.
Right. Okay. So you want the Trent experiment in midfield to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I would be interested if he actually will play Davis. I'm still convinced Davis is a mirage. I don't think we actually signed him. I don't think he ever existed. Or he won a competition that just says you get to train with Liverpool every day. And you don't actually get to play. Because I've never known someone who was signed and has had 3 training sessions has been injured for most of them. That
sounds like one of our players. That I mean, we have that. We have that. I mean, half the players we signed. I mean, we had one player, Adam Forshaw, who had an injury to his side and was only going to be out for a week. Was the initial diagnosis. He's not played since September 2019. So we've got the same luck. That's some knocks to the side. That is.
Yeah, I'm expecting quite a few changes. I think backline wise, I think he sticks to the 2 fullbacks and the keeper because I think they're your only options. At some point, people won't lie, I think he's going to keep Fabinho at centre back because I think he's just decided he needs to find a partnership at centre back that's going to stay fit, which is Touchwood, Fabinho, and probably Phillips now because Kabak, being a centre back, is injured. So what more could you have? Well, you have to laugh now, don't you? Because nothing else you can do. No. In terms of midfield, I'd actually like to see maybe we do the 4-2-3-1. And people won't like this. I'd start Milner. I think you just need a bit of nastiness and politely somebody's got to bollock him. I think you need that leadership quality, and then put some legs next to him. Put likes of Keita next to him. Get a bit of legs going. If he's fit, start Jota. For me, I'd start Jota.
He's got to start now.
I'd start Jota over. I'd actually bench Mane because as bad as Firmino's been, and he's been poor for 18 months. Bless him, Mane this year he ain't been far behind him. If it was me, maybe you start Jota, Salah, and throw your wild card, throw Shaqiri in. Give Mane and Firmino a bit of a break, and also a bit of a mental kick up the arse. Going, it wasn't good enough, lads. You're on the bench. I even left you on against Chelsea. You didn't do it for me. The telling thing from Klopp's comments, which I don't know if this is just paying lip service, and it could be paying lip service, which was being without Salah for half an hour against Chelsea means we have him for Fulham. So is that managing minutes? Is that managing a niggle? We don't know. It could just be his bluff line. Just because he took him off, and let's face it, it didn't work. But I would be surprised if Keita doesn't start, because if he doesn't start now, when's he going to start? Because he's been fit now for a month, and even when we're losing, we're not throwing him on. So if he ain't starting him now, he ain't going to ever start him. So I'm going to go for a 2-0. And then we need some sort of positivity going into our home leg in Hungary against Leipzig. Which is a very bizarre phrase.
Just a quick one, because I know we're out of time. Do we get top 4, Chris?
I'm not ruling it out yet, so I'm going to say yes for the moment.
That's my man.
I actually think you will. I honestly, for now.
Oscar, this is why you're coming on to replace Joe.
I know, but no, seriously, you get Jota back in. I've seen what Jota, Mane, Salah did in that Atalanta. I think you play against teams below that top 6, even with the defensive problems. You'll start to blow teams away. I mean, sometimes it is. I hate to use this as a comparison, but he's almost going to be like Fernandes at Man United kind of thing. That kind of impact. When he came in and suddenly shot them up the table. I honestly think that will happen, and I think that sometimes does happen, and I think it will on this occasion.
We need a bit of a buzz, yeah.
Yeah, Red Steve's got 1-0 to Liverpool. Craig Lowe's got 4-1 to the Reds, so a little bit of positivity. Right, so we're going to do in a minute our one to watch on our how many goals we think we're going to get this week. To make it a bit different, if you go over to Flick Sports app, we're going to put these on. We're going to put our 4 players that we think are going to be the ones to watch and how many goals we think, and we'll let you guys vote just to see, bit of fun, who's the closest and who's not the closest. So we'll go through this. Just so you know, guys, Flick Sports app, it is there. You're getting there for free, and we can comment, give feedback. So if you've got feedback on the show, you think, or things you'd like to add, or things you'd like to change, you'd like us to try differently, let us know. All feedback is welcome. And to us, it's a good laugh and interaction when we're talking about, how things are doing Liverpool. So goals this weekend. Right, let me write these down. Avi, how many goals this weekend?
45.
45. Oscar?
42.
42. Matt?
I've got 23.
23.
Bloody hell, Matt.
It's all right. I've got 28, so don't worry. Okay. Right. Your one to watch. This could be good, bad, indifferent. Matt, who's your one to watch? You can't pick a Tottenham player.
Phil Foden.
Phil Foden. Good choice. Okay. Oscar, who's your one to watch?
I'm going to go Jamie Vardy. I think he's been a bit out of form recently. Well, I think he's going to really turn up against Brighton.
Okay. Avi, who have you got? You can't pick anyone associated with Liverpool, even if they're on loan.
Can I go with McGoldrick of Sheffield United?
McGoldrick. Cool. Right, and I'm torn between two. So I'm going to go with, because it's a bit different, I'm going to go with Alan from Everton. I think if Alan plays for Everton, I think that's go a big way to him getting at least a point. I think that's the sort of game he's signed up. The other player I did have, I think we had him last week, was Bruno Fernandes. There is the narrative he doesn't do it in the big games. Now, though, that's because his supply is cut off. But I think for United to get going in the big, they need the big players to turn up these big games. Look, Avi, me and you could say the same. That's what we've not had in the big games. Our big players aren't there or aren't doing it. So that is where we're up to. So, right. Before we go, Oscar, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find us on All These TV on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Of course, you'll have already seen Joe. Joe is not stopped going on about the predictions thing, and I just hope that if Joe wins the lottery, it's just like
you never hear about it.
Oh, it's just if Joe gets any kind of power in that lot, it will be like, it'll just be like he won the predictions and that lot. But yeah, make sure you do check us out on All These TV anyway.
Cool. Matt, where can people find you?
Matt Hayes Tottenham Blog on YouTube or Matt Hayes THFC on Twitter.
Excellent. And Avi, you just appear on LFC Daytrippers every show. Anything you would like to add before we go?
No, just hopefully we win on Sunday and lift them spirits. And great, Oscar, nice one for having. I think we're trying to add Oscar to the WhatsApp group, aren't we? We're finding some trouble.
Honestly, I was born 60. Technology is just like it doesn't go well.
Little Matt, always a pleasure as always. Great kid.
Good. Cool. Right. That's us for the evening. It's nearly 11:30, so I've kept you here for longer than the hour we said we would. Once again, thanks again for tuning in and support, and thank you very much for all the feedback we've had so far. It's much appreciated. So this is the Friday Forecast. We will see you all next week.